what does society have to offer young men anymore? There are like endless amounts of charts that show that things are going pretty fucking badly for guys in their 30s relative to any other generation. Home ownership of like people that are 30s now compared to 30s of other generations before, it's just like a fraction of the amount of people that are in their 30s that actually own a home now. This will be even worse for Zoomers. Let's not play any games here. Like, this is going to be worse for Zoomers. All of the bullshit, all of the the bad outcomes that millennials are seeing, Zoomers are going to see, but even worse. There's always been this social contract which has always been given to young men, at least in first world countries. You, a young man, probably don't want to wake up early. You don't really want to go to school, college, study, do all this bullshit. But if you do this for a long enough time, you get to have the nice white picket fence lifestyle. Think about Homer, right? Homer is a good totem for this, right? The guy wasn't particularly bright, but he kind of just went through the motions. He went to work, and he got his reward, right? Like, he's got a nice house, a nice family, stay-at-home wife. Things are going pretty good. And the funny thing is, right, at the time when The Simpsons was like first made, Homer was supposed to be seen as like a average Joe, or like a guy that you would kind of look down upon, right? He wasn't someone that you would think of as aspirational. But now today, in 2025, we look at Homer's lifestyle as pretty fucking good, right? Like, this guy has actually made it. Like, Homer has unironically made it. The guy has a nice big home. He's got a loving family, a stay-at-home wife. He's got pets. Like, everything's going well for him, right? Relative to like a guy in his 30s today. And this kind of begs the question, which is, what is going to happen to society when people figure out that there's nothing really to work for? There's not really a carrot at the end. And this is like a big fucking problem. I know the phrase social contract has got kind of a bad rap because most of the time when people use it, it's used in a way to basically justify some bullshit that they want to do. Like a bad example of the social contract is when people say the social contract is to pay your taxes to get sent to Israel's military. It's like, what the fuck? No, a real social contract is kind of made between old people and young people, which is, the old people, they're not very strong, they're not very robust, they're kind of fragile, like physically fragile. Like, let's just think in terms of just pure amoral reality. It's kind of fucking easy to steal from an old person, right? It's kind of fucking easy. You can just bash them over the head, take their wallet, take their phone, and that's that. So society needs a way to like convince young people not to do that. And, we're not taking into account any morality in this. We're just talking about just basic, incentive cost analysis here. And the deal that was made between society and young people is, no, you shouldn't just steal from the rich old guy, because one day you will be a rich old guy and you don't want to live in a society where some thug bashes you over the head and takes your wallet. You don't want to live in that society when you grow up. So, behave, wake up at 7 a.m., go to college, go to work, probably not going to have a lot of fun, but eventually you'll be the rich old guy that is content. And, this works kind of well. And I think this is kind of like the real social contract that is behind first world countries. It's when young people kind of abstain from being a total fucking degenerate. They also want to inherit a high trust society when they get old and for their kids, right? Like, it makes sense. The problem now is boomers kind of flipped that on its head. Boomers kind of started a lot of the indebting of future generations, which is incredibly fucking dislikable. I don't think I really need to explain why indebting a baby, a fucking baby, into paying off like your social securities, your military, your welfare programs is not very likable. But that's what it is. And because boomers have done this so fucking much, it kind of has this cascade effect where it's kind of just created a lot of intergenerational distrust. And more specifically, it means the quality of life for younger generations is by design worse, right? It's not a bug, it's a feature. The idea of the average income trickling up like gradually, it's like and then you have the cost of the average home just to go whoosh up like that. You see what's happening here, right? Like, young people are getting priced out of owning homes. Just general living it's just becoming very fucking costly, to where you know, if you just want to average like dignified life, you know, you got to spend a lot of fucking money, right? And this is if you follow the rules. You know, if you get a college degree, that doesn't really matter much now, right? Yeah, it's only a marginal increase on your wages on average. So all of this kind of like begs the question, which is like, why would he bother? Like, what's the point in going along with all of these rules that old people made up? Like, why go along with it? And there isn't really a great answer, right? And I think this is why there's been so much young people just kind of checking out of society. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, a lot of really smart people are checking out of society. Now, how many nerds are just like wasting away in Discord, playing games, you know, not really doing much, certainly not trying to aspire to something like previous generations were. You know, that's a bit of a fucking problem. You know, when the brightest and most talented intellectuals of your society are kind of just checking out and being degenerate, that's an issue. That is a big issue, because these are people that are going to carry your society, or would carry your society. You know, people that would be engineers, people that would be, you know, inventing shit, people that would be like, you know, doing real, you know, really carrying society, right? They kind of don't really see the point in going along with any of this. That is a big fucking problem. Another thing, like from the perspective of boomers, like, you know, even if they don't give a shit about, you know, about generations after them, and I suspect they kind of don't. I mean, well, it's not suspect, I kind of know they don't. But like, even if that's the case, it's still dangerous for them. Like, do they not realize that if there's a whole group of young men that have nothing to lose, they don't really care, they don't really have anything to look forward to, do they not realize that's a bit of an existential danger to them? You know, old people are fucking fragile. You know, if there's a lot of young men that they don't give a shit about morality, they don't give a shit about anything, you know, working towards anything in the future, and, you know, they have all their capability in the world just to steal your stuff, do you not see that as a bit of a problem? Do you not see that as a bit of a risk? You know, a bit of an existential risk? Because it is. It absolutely is. Like, there's just no doubt about it. You know, they've kind of fucked themselves over here, because now there's like an increasing growing amount of young men that have no ties to, you know, a wife or family. They don't really have a tie to a career. You know, they don't give a shit about gatekeepers. They don't give a shit about, you know, respecting them or looking up to their elders. That's a bit of a fucking problem. And like, whether you like it, whether you dislike it, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, this is a big reason why, you know, Marxism is kind of like becoming a thing, or there's been a drift away from center left to far left or more extreme left. I think that's you know, a big fucking reason. And the same goes the other way, right? Like, center right guys have, within the young, like, they're like, the average like guy on the right within like Gen Z is way far to the right compared to boomers. So like, you're kind of like creating extremes on both ends, and, you know, the center is kind of bleeding away. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, but I know it's not a good thing for the status quo, right? It's not a good thing if you're just you know, a boomer looking to retire and not get his house firebombed. You know, it's not good then. But like, all I can say really is, I think boomers have kind of, you know, reaped you know, a terrible, you know, pact with the devil here, with indebting the young and just trading away liberties, just trading away, like, you know, any kind of good future that generations after them may have. They've kind of made this pact with the devil, and now they've kind of created a low trust society where they're the most vulnerable. So it's a bit of they kind of, you know, hoisted themselves by their own petard, right? I don't really propose any solution to this. I don't think there really is a solution to this. I just think they've just made a pretty bad decision just as a generation. You know that phrase, like, a society grows great when old men plant trees where they will never sit in its shade? Well, boomers didn't necessarily plant any trees, but they did salt the earth.